All right, we are here for another preview. This time it's Purdue versus Akron, a little bit less of a higher profile game than what we saw against Alabama, but still a very good game as Akron is rated 78th on KenPom after the updates from last night. Very good team out of the MAC. As a Western Michigan student, am very familiar with John Gross's Akron teams. Um, yeah, they're really good. They this is going to be like playing one of the back end of the Big Ten teams. Like this is not your typical mid major. This is very much a very good team. It's a game that Purdue cannot kind of sleepwalk through the whole time and expect to just roll through this game. They're going to put up a fight. They have a great point guard in Tavari Johnson, who one of the best players in the MAC coming into the year. Another familiar face with Evan Mahaffey, Ohio State transfer, is having a pretty strong start to the year for them. Looks like a great perimeter defender at the MAC level. And yeah, I'll throw it to you, Ethan, and let you kind of kick off your thoughts on this Akron matchup.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, this is a Power Five level team, a high major level team, a low level one, but still, I mean, they're ranked ahead of Penn State and Rutgers on KenPom. Purdue's going to have easier matchups when we get into the Big Ten schedule. This is not like an Evansville or even an Oakland where even if Purdue struggles, you expect to win comfortably. If Purdue gets out to a slow start in this game, if they're playing sloppy, if they're not on their A game, Akron won't just be able to hang around. They could beat Purdue if we see an Oakland level of effort and intensity from these players. So I think it's a good test for a Purdue team that fell to number 2 in last week's AP poll after a lackluster performance against Oakland. Got the huge road win against another top 10 team in Alabama, and has their trip to the Bahamas coming up with Memphis and then either Wake Forest or Texas Tech on deck. This is sort of a classic quote unquote trap game. But Akron's way too good a team to fall for the trap. This is not a game that Purdue can sleepwalk through. So I think it'll be a good test for the mental makeup of this unit.
Yeah, and I think part of that is Akron. It all starts with their point guard, Tavari Johnson. He's a little bit of a smaller guy. He's about the same size as Braden Smith, listing wise. Ken Palm and the team have him listed at 6 foot and 170, but I believe he's actually listed at 5'10", 155 on Basketball Reference. From my view, I think he's closer to the 6 foot 170 mark than he is the 5'10", 155 mark, but still not a super large guy. He's going to be pretty similar size to Braden Smith. This team plays, I think, like a lot of the mid-major teams that you've seen give Purdue problems in the tournament in the past. Like they're a little bit undersized, but they're super aggressive. They play really fast. They have a really good backcourt. Everything kind of stems from their backcourt, and the pressure at the backcourt's able to put on you both offensively and defensively. They're 48th in the country on tempo. 11th in the country in an average offensive possession. So they're weighed down by teams trying to slow them down on the defensive end, and they're still playing at a blazing fast pace. The one thing I would say is this team just doesn't have a ton of size. Like Evan Mahaffey plays a decent amount of minutes at the 5. The starter is Amani Lyles, who's only 6'9", 240. Mahaffey plays the majority of the backup minutes there. It's going to be a really, really tough task, I think, for this Akron front court to really limit Purdue's front court, especially if they play the way they did against Alabama.
Yeah, they're ranked 342nd in average height of all teams in the country. I mean, this is a very small team, and we saw what Purdue's front court did to another small team in Alabama. Now, Alabama is small for a high major top 10 team. They're much bigger than Akron, but that just goes to show Purdue really amped up their physicality in that Alabama game, and they upgraded their physicality in general by bringing Oscar Clough in this offseason. I wouldn't expect Trey Kaufman to grab 15 boards every game, but if he's going to play with that level of intensity and dedication to rebounding, this could be one of the best rebounding front courts in the country. And that's a huge advantage against an Akron team that, even if Trey Kaufman was playing the 5 and Jack Benner was playing the 4, would be undersized in that matchup. So this is a great opportunity for Purdue to prove that last week against Alabama was not a fluke. That was not just a one-off rebounding performance. And we're going to go back to, splitting even on the boards against the Oaklands of the world. This is a chance for them to sort of assert their dominance on the boards and really control the tempo and the possession battle through that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this team, however, even though it's small, like this is just a really, really well coached team. They play a lot of veteran guys. They start 5 seniors. Like this team plays like a vetty team, even though they don't have the size. This has been one of the best defenses in the country against opponent 2-point field goal percentage. They're 15th nationally in opponents 2-point percentage, despite starting a 6'9" center. Like that's incredibly impressive. And when you look at their KenPom page, this looks like a team that's very well coached and starts 5 seniors. I mean, they don't turn the ball over. They shoot the ball well from the field. They turn other teams over. They rebound the ball well. They get to the line. They don't foul. Like this is a really tough team. I think just well coached. It's gonna be a tough matchup.
Literally the only red on their scouting report, aside from opponent field free throw percentage, which they have no control over, is their block percentage, which makes sense given their size. They're not going to swap many shots at all. But like you said, they have an elite defense and elite 2-point defense, even despite their small size. Now, they haven't played a high major team yet. I think if they were battling in the Big Ten, for example, that 2-point percentage defense would likely plummet. But they play James Madison and Princeton. And even though those teams aren't quite as good as they've been in years past, those are still two of the better mid-major programs in the country. I'm sure their numbers are boosted a little bit by playing a Division II team, but even so, I mean, they put 104 on Princeton and held them to 69 points. Like that, that's an impressive matchup, even if this isn't the Princeton of the past couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. I would say to go off of that too. I just double checked, and Princeton and James Madison, neither of them have a player in their rotation who's over 6'9" themselves. So that is something to note. Is that Akron has played teams that match up with them size wise, and I think that's important to note. But still, this has been a team that has played 2 good mid majors and ran them out of the gym. Like Princeton is a good enough program and a well enough coached program that I wouldn't expect them really to get ran out of the gym outside of playing like the elite of the elite in college basketball. Like I expect them to, be able to hold their own a little bit, even against some of the mid-level, like Power 5 teams. Princeton has been one of those programs that when you play them, they hang around, and Akron was able to just run them out of the gym. Like this is a team that if they're hitting shots and you don't show up to play, they'll make you look bad.
Yeah, and to build off that, this is also not a team where they have one player you need to shut down and everything kind of runs through them. You mentioned how good Tavari Johnson is, and he's fantastic, but this team has 7 players averaging 7 or more points and 3 players averaging at least 4 assists. They share the ball extremely well. The scoring is diversified. They only have 3 players averaging more than 25 minutes a game, and no one playing more than 26. And that 26 per game is Tavari. So they play a lot of guys. They rotate and they play fast to keep guys fresh. They shoot a lot of threes. They're effective in the paint. They share the ball extremely well. They rebound well for an undersized team. This is a classic team that's going to bite someone in the first round of the NCAA tournament, not just because of how good they are, but because of how they play. This is the perfect kind of team to trap one of those, slower paced 2 or 3 seeds in the NCAA tournament where they're playing so fast and getting up so many shots, turning the ball over, guys are rotating and out, playing aggressive defense, and it's a close game at the end, and they make one more shot on their opponents. And they've won NCAA tournament games in the past, and this is their coach's best team in the 10 years he's been there. So matchup wise, stylistically, Purdue has a lot of advantages, which we can begin to get into. But like I said at the opening here, if Purdue is slow coming out the gate, if they don't take Akron seriously, Akron can score quickly and they won't go away.
Yeah, and another thing that I think is important to note, especially with these mid-major teams, is Akron had almost no roster turnover from last year. Like this team is almost the exact same team as last year, which is really important when you look at the beginning of the season because they know how to play together. There's like this continuity aspect that a lot of teams don't have, and that's important when it comes to basketball. And as much as people want to admit that or want to act like it's not in the portal era, keeping good players is incredibly important to winning basketball games, and Akron has been able to do that.
This is not all that important, but I do want to note that I'm looking over their roster right now. They have a guard, plays 12 minutes a game, averages 4 and 4 by the name of Onion Stankovic, and that's just as elite a basketball name as you can have. So stock up Akron. But to your point about Akron, let's talk a little bit more about the specific ways they match up with Purdue, because as much as we've been praising Akron on this preview, Purdue has some sizable advantages in this matchup that even just goes beyond them being a top 5 team. Just stylistically, the way Purdue plays is going to be very difficult for Akron to keep up with, and that starts with the size Purdue has. We start 2 players bigger than anyone on Akron's roster, and then obviously Daniel 4 is going to tower over everyone when he's on the floor. Purdue has a huge advantage inside in this matchup, and I expect them to go to that post play early and often.
Yeah, and not only that, Akron also has a really, that's we talked about. They don't have a lot of red on their KenPom profile. They've not been great at defending the 3-point line. The opponents are shooting around 35% from three on the season against Akron, and Purdue's size, that's going to be even more important because if you say we're going to take away Purdue shooters, there's no chance. I think Akron almost has no chance on the glass and inside if they say we have to take away Purdue shooters. And if they start to bring down extra help to help on the size that Purdue has, which I think they're going to have to do, that it's going to lead to an already poor 3-point defense giving up a lot of open looks.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a game plan that Purdue saw a lot in the Edey era, where teams that had no hope of matching Edey one-on-one or even bringing a quick double, like they didn't have the size in the front court to do that, would sell out to stop him in the paint, because obviously you can't let Edey go one-on-one. It would create a lot of open looks for Purdue shooters, and we saw that go well when Purdue was shooting well and very poorly when Purdue wasn't shooting well. Maybe most famously in the FDU tournament matchup where Purdue had open looks all game and wasn't able to hit them. If Purdue is shooting 30% from 3 in this game, they're going to score a ton of points. I don't see how Akron can defend the 3-point line and stop Clough and Kaufman running the paint, and Jacobson for that matter. I think Jacobson's going to be able to get whatever he wants in the paint when he comes in here, which is not something he's able to do in a lot of matchups. So it's a little bit damned if you do, damned if you don't for Akron. If they stay home on shooters, I mean, Purdue is just going to score every single time they get it down to one of their big men. And if they sell out to try and stop them, then you're giving one of the best shooting teams in the country just teeing off Fletcher Lawyer and CJ Cox and Omer Meyer from 3. It's going to be a long night.
Yeah, I think this Akron team actually profiles very kind of similar to that FDU team, just like much more talent on paper. Like they're undersized for sure. They start 2 small guards, but they're super athletic, especially for their level. Like Akron is a very athletic team for a mid-major. They are not going to come out and look like overwhelmed athletically by any stretch of the imagination. They got 2 little guards who really like to heat you up ball pressure wise. They're trying to force turnovers. They are trying to run in transition. And I think it all starts from Tavari Johnson. Like I mentioned, I mean, I understand I sound like his biggest fan right now, but he's a very good player. And I think a lot of what they want to do starts from him. And it's going to be a kind of a unique, I think another fun point guard matchup. Like Akron wants to get the ball to Tavari and turn you over and run in transition. And Purdue, I think, is going to want to slow it down a little bit and execute in the half court. And I think that if they force Akron to play in the half court, I think there's a real chance that this defense is able to kind of exert their will just size wise. I think Akron is going to have a lot of trouble scoring in the half court.
Yeah, transition defense is going to be big for Purdue. We've seen it look very good at points this season and look very bad at other points this season. I thought against Alabama, for the most part, they did a pretty good job of stopping transition opportunities. But when Alabama was able to force live ball turnovers, that led to runouts, easy dunks, open threes. I mean, a lot of how Alabama was able to get back in that game after Purdue would push it out to a 7-8 point lead at several points throughout the game was there would be a couple of untimely turnovers or a missed three and a long rebound that would lead to a quick run out. And that's how Bam was able to get some easy points and keep clawing their way back into the game to make it a tie game with 2 minutes left. And, I don't expect this to be a tie game with 2 minutes left, but if Purdue is sloppy with the ball, that's going to feed Akron's pace and it's going to get them easy scoring opportunities where you're right. I don't think they're going to have a super easy time in the half court unless they're just on fire from three, which is entirely possible, but it's a tough way to live as an underdog on the road.
Yeah, for what it's worth, they've been a pretty good shooting team from three in their first few games. Tavari Johnson's shot really well from three. Shama Scott, who's their starting shooting guard, that's kind of going to be the backcourt matchup or pairing is Tavari Johnson and Shama Scott. They've both shot well in the year. Tavari Johnson 6 for 10, Shama Scott's 5 for 14. This is a team that is capable of hitting shots. If Purdue's defense is just giving them open looks, they're going to knock them down. And this is not a bad offensive team or a bad shooting team at all. And I think that inherently makes them a dangerous team, which I think we've echoed, throughout this entire preview, is that this style is conducive to causing problems to teams and they're talented enough to do that. They're talented enough to play their style. And if you play their style, they're pretty good at it. And they're tough to beat. And so I think that Purdue's going to need to slow this game down. That's where the point guard matchup really comes into play for me, is because you're going to have Braden Smith, who we just saw this on Thursday. There's no one in the country better at controlling a game and controlling the tempo than he is. It's one of the most underrated aspects of his game. And if he's able to do that, I think that'll be really big for Purdue. Executing in the half court is going to be one of this team's strengths. And especially with the size advantage that they'll have at almost every single position in this game, just making this a half-court game is probably the biggest point of emphasis to me for Purdue.
Yeah, I mean, you saw against Alabama, Braden would take almost the entire 10 seconds he had in the backcourt just to get the ball up. And part of that was due to Alabama's pressure. I'm sure if he had free reign of it, he wouldn't have been quite that slow. But he did seem very intentional to just work the shot clock, take the air out of the ball, limit the possessions, and that was a game played at Purdue's pace. I don't expect quite that deliberately slow a game in this one, but probably similar, where Purdue's looking to get into their half-court sets, take things easy. It's to say they won't take a transition opportunity if they get an easy one, but I wouldn't expect them to be chucking up shots, contested shots in transition or fighting for stuff at the rim 2-on-1 or whatever, or 1-on-2. If needed, they're pull it back, take a minute, get the ball back to Braden, reset, because the last thing you want is, a bad shot in transition that leads to a run out for Akron when your defense isn't set. And on the defensive end, it's going to be a big defensive game for Purdue's guards. This is an Akron team that plays fast and moves the ball extremely well, player to player. There's going to be rotations they have to make to different shooters. I don't expect them to completely wall off the paint. Guards are going to be able to get in the paint. Tavari Johnson, Shama Scott, whoever, be able to get into the paint and then kick out the players. And it's going to be imperative for guys like Fletcher Lawyer, CJ Cox, Braden Smith, Jakari Harris, the perimeter players, to find their men and keep them from getting open threes, which has been a bit of a mixed bag so far for Purdue this season. I think this will be a good test against a game they should win in Mackey Arena. Something that is going to be really important for this team moving forward this season.
Yeah, I am looking forward to this one for sure. And this Akron team has good enough athletes too. They can beat us off the dribble, I think, in a way that a lot of mid-majors don't have more than one guy. A lot of times you'll see a mid-major with one guy who can give Purdue problems off the dribble. He's good enough to give you problems. I think Akron has 2 or 3 at least that are good enough athletes and have enough of a burst and athleticism and size that they can kind of beat you off the dribble and punish you if you get lazy on defense. And so I think, again, it'll be a big test for Purdue's guards. The one thing I just keep going back to, though, is that size advantage. Like, this is a game, it wouldn't shock me if Clough has another 2 or 3 blocks, just like he did against Oakland a couple games ago. I think Jacobson will probably have a few blocks when he comes into this game. This feels like the quintessential, Purdue just has the 7-footer at the rim, and this mid-major offense that's really undersized doesn't want to challenge the 7-footers at the rim. And that, I think, inherently leads to a lot more tough shots. And ideally that's where Purdue wins. And I think that's why it's so important to keep this Akron team out of transition, because they have a lot of success there. And so if we can force them to play out of a set half-court offense and play against a set half-court defense with 7-footers at the rim and play drop coverage and, kind of force these Akron guards to hit tough pull-ups and tough threes, I think this Purdue team starts to have a lot of success this game. And this is a game that, for as much as we've talked up how good Akron is, I think there's a little bit of blowout potential here just with the matchup.
Yeah, I completely agree. As much as we've talked about Purdue's potential issues on the defensive end, Akron's going to have way, way tougher a time on the defensive end in their own right. I mean, Braden Smith is easily the best guard in this game. Fletcher Lawyer is the second best guard in this game. Like, there's no question. There's no question about that. Purdue has the advantage at every position down the roster, right? As much as Evan Mahafy's Ohio State last year gave us some problems in Mackey Arena, I mean, Trey Coffin-Ryan is so easily the better player, and there's not a position on the floor where Akron has a matchup advantage. So as much as stylistically their pace and their talent and athleticism could pose Purdue problems defensively, Braden Smith, Trey Coffin-Wren, Oscar Clough, literally everyone will have whatever they want offensively, as long as they're taking the game seriously and playing under control. The only real potential issue here is Akron is good enough to get Purdue if they don't take this game seriously. But if they play the way they should, this game does have blowout potential, because as good as Akron is, and they're the best mid-major team Purdue will play this entire season, probably including the NCAA tournament, by the way, if they end up as a 1 or a 2 seed.
Yeah, I mean, Akron's probably one of the best mid-majors in the country this year. Like, very few mid-major teams better than them.
But Purdue is one of the best teams in the country
Exactly.
this year. And stylistically, they're just so much bigger. They're a better shooting team. They have the best point guard in the country. They have the best power forward in the country. Like, there's not a lot of ways for Akron to actually win this game. However, I could see it play out like the Oakland game if Purdue is sloppy defensively, because Akron is absolutely a good enough offensive team to punish them if they're not taking things seriously on the defensive end.
Yeah, I think this game is all about how Purdue approaches it. I completely agree, because if Purdue comes out and executes well in this game and takes this game as seriously as I think they will, like, I just think that Purdue is such an awful matchup for this Akron team, especially if they rebound well. Like, if this Purdue team rebounds well, there's no chance that Akron beats this team, because they should, whatever they got on the offensive glass against Alabama, and they got quite a bit, they should be able to get every bit of that and more against a much smaller Akron team that wants to leak out in transition. Like, that's another thing. They're going to want to leak out in transition. And if that happens and Purdue's crashing the offensive glass, you could see like a 25 offensive rebound game. And if that happens, you're going to have either Trey Kaufman run layup factory, or you're going to have just a 3-point shooting clinic from 40% 3-point shooters, because this game is being played in Mackey. This isn't an away game. Like, the shooting, I fully expect the shooting to be on full display. I expect wouldn't be shocked if Jack Benner and Liam Murphy get quite a bit of run in this game. It also wouldn't shock me to see Purdue experiment with some smaller lineups, maybe Trey Kaufman and Liam Murphy 4-5 combo. I think this would be a game to try that out. I think you would still have the size advantage if you went with those two in the front court. I think this game kind of gets out of hand a little bit, and that kind of ties us into predictions. Ken Pom has this game as a Purdue win, 89-73. It's a 16-point spread. How do you see this game playing out? Do you think Purdue covers the 16 points?
This one's tricky because 16 feels about right for an over under in this game. Kind of feels like that range of like, is this going to be a blowout or is Akron going to be able to hang around until the second half of the second half, last 10 minutes? I think the actual betting line is probably going to be closer to 20 or even maybe a little bit higher. And there you'd really be betting on Purdue playing like they did against Alabama and really getting up for this game. I am going to take Purdue to cover. I think 20 sounds about right. I think this lead probably gets higher, but Akron, like once Purdue starts playing all their backups, especially the walk-ons, like Akron's just going to start hitting some shots and probably close the gap a little bit. I think there's a chance that it's not quite this high scoring, though. That's the one thing about Purdue this year. They have the number one of offense in terms of efficiency on KenPom. However, they play at one of the slowest paces in the country, and that just limits possessions and opportunities to score. So it wouldn't surprise me if this game gets in the 90s or the upper 80s, but give me Purdue like 84 to 66, like an 18-point kind of win. Feels about right to me.
I think this Purdue team wins handily. I'm going to take Purdue to cover the 16. I think you see the Purdue defense have a lot of success in this game. I think this is a game where we end up looking back on it just kind of being like, yeah, like should have seen this coming. This is a mid-major offense that's really undersized. And, like at the end of the day, they start Evan Mahaffey, his younger brother, Eric, who's a freshman, and Amani Lyles, who, while Evan Mahaffey has shot the ball very well to start the season, he has been a pretty poor shooter throughout most of his career at Ohio State. And the other two, Lyles and Eric Mahaffey, are just pretty much non-shooters as well. This is an offense that, like, they're 3 through 5, once they get things at the rim, are going to need to get a lot of success at the rim. And I just think with Purdue's size, it's just a horrible matchup for a team that wants to play at the rim. And combine that with the fact that Braden Smith is the best point guard in the country, I think this game is played completely on Purdue's terms. Akron's not going to get a ton in transition. I don't think they're going to force a ton of turnovers. Like, this is a team that thrives on forcing turnovers, and that's a rough recipe against senior Braden Smith. Like, I just don't think you'll force that many turnovers against senior Braden Smith. And when it gets to a half-court game, I think you're going to see Purdue execute at a very highly efficient rate just because the execution that Purdue has in the half court matchup wise is just not it. I don't think Akron will be able to match up with Purdue one-on-one.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you like you said, we'll look back on this win, assuming they win later in the year, and kind of note how important it was. This is also a pretty notable game from an NCAA tournament perspective. This is a quad 2 game in terms of quads, or at least it easily could become that. It's a home game. I think home quad 2 goes up to.
I know the quad 1 requirements. I don't know the quad 2 requirements.
But you're gonna get to, they start doing bracketology shows in the late January, early February, and you're kind of watching them total up. What's Purdue's resume versus like other 1 seed contenders or 2 seed or wherever Purdue is sitting in that pool, and they'll be like, oh, Purdue had combined Q1 and Q2 wins, and Purdue's gonna have like 12 or something. And you're gonna go, that seems high, and you're gonna look back and be like, well, Akron qualifies. That it's a couple of years ago. The same deal with Samford, where it was the season opening win for like a 50-point win over a Samford team that was top 100 on KenPom and top 100 in the net, and that ended up, being a Q2 win for the rest of the year, and what typically would be just like a bye game against a Q3 opponent.
And it also boosts your metrics a ton. Like if you beat a top 100 team, I mean, if we beat Akron by 40, that will probably be our, I think, best metric performance that we'll have all year. Like, if I had to guess, barring like a surprising 30-point blowout of a random conference team. Like, if for some reason we beat Michigan State by 30, obviously that would be a huge boost to our metrics. But I mean, I think this is the most realistic game that we could see a blowout in that is against a quality opponent, and that would be very, very good for the metrics. And on the flip side, we talked a little bit about this before we started recording. This is Akron's only Power 5 game all year. So there's, I think, a little bit of extra motivation from the Akron perspective of just This is our shot. We're a really good mid-major. We have a lot of upperclassmen. We brought everybody back to go on this tournament run. This is our shot to build an at-large resume. We are going to Mackey Arena. If they found a way to beat Purdue, I mean, they're putting themselves on the inside track to getting an at-large bid, barring a shocking collapse for the rest of the season. And they're playing in a tough MAC that has a few teams at the top that are all around that 100 mark. And it's not a guarantee that they'll win this conference, but beating Purdue would go a long way towards solidifying an at-large bid for this Akron team. And I think that inherently carries a ton of motivation when this is a team that doesn't have those opportunities on this schedule.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only game Akron is projected to lose per KenPom all season. Now they're not expected to go, 28-1 or whatever, but the lowest confidence is a game against Miami, Ohio, later in the season. I mean, this is arguably the best mid-major in the country, and this is the only Power 5 game they play. It comes against a top 5 team on the road, so they're not expected to win, let alone be competitive. But there's a huge opportunity here for Akron, and they're going to be fired up to play. So Purdue better be able to match that if they want a favorable result in this one. But with that, we've gone 31 minutes on an Akron preview. Really doesn't matter how big or small the game is. Joey and I are going to be here to talk your ear off about it and kind of break this down from all angles. So we'll be here after the game. This is a Sunday night, 7 p.m. in Mackey. So we'll get the recap up sometime on Monday, and then it's off to the Bahamas for Purdue basketball a week before Thanksgiving. So a little earlier than their usual feast week tournaments this year, but they'll have a game against Memphis and then presumably Texas Tech, although Wake Forest is looking feisty, and Purdue fans will recognize Miles Colvin on the opposite bench. So good storylines no matter how that little tournament plays out, but we'll be here to break it all down, preview both games, recap them, and enjoy your weekend, everyone.